So what I want to add in this video is going to be items that the player can collect, such as ammo and health drops and more grenades. So I'll add them in essentially the same way as I have with everything else. I'll just use classes because then I just need to code it once and I can repeat the functionality for as many instances as I want. So I'll come up here. Where's a good place? I'll do it just before my bullets. I'll create a section here, and this is where I'm going to create these item drops. So I'll start in the same way because this is going to be another sprite class. I'm just going to copy these first few lines from the bullet class, put it up here, and just start renaming it. So this I'm going to call item box, and that stays the same. And then within the init, of course I need the x and the y coordinates. I'll remove direction. But before the x and the y, what I also need to know is what kind of item this is. So I'll do item underscore type. This way I can just use this same code for my 3 different types of items. This line stays the same, and then underneath that I'll say self.item type equals item type, so that I basically take this argument and I convert it into a variable here. So the next thing is I need to load an image. So of course self.image equals. Now I'm going to have different types of item images here depending on what kind of item this is. So what I'll have separately is a list, and within that list I'm going to have the different images. An item type is going to determine which image I'm accessing. So in here, let's say item boxes, which is the list that I'm going to create in a second. And the index is going to be determined by the item type. So let's say self.item underscore type. Then from that, again, I need to create a rectangle. So self.image.get underscore rect. And then I need to position this. Now the positioning here is going to be a little bit different to what I've normally done. So rather than center, I'm going to position it based on the mid-top. So on the x-coordinate, it's the center, but on the y-coordinate, it's the top of the rectangle. And the reason for this is because these boxes are going to not be quite as big as one of my tiles, which I've referred to previously. So I need to position it kind of in the middle of the tile and at the bottom of it. So I take that for the x and the y coordinates. I take the x that I'm being given here as the argument, and then I add on half a tile size. So remember, tile size, although I haven't used this for my level yet, I haven't got to it yet, this is going to determine how big each of the tiles on my level are. So I'm just going to divide tile size by 2 using floor division here, so it doesn't give me a float, and that's going to determine my x coordinate. For the y coordinate, I take the y that's being fed in from this argument, and then I do kind of the same thing here, except I take the tile size and I want to make sure that this item box sits kind of at the bottom of the tile size. So we say minus self.image.get underscore height. So I need to work out how big this rectangle is. So this maybe seems a little bit confusing, but don't really worry about it too much. You can mess around with the numbers to see what it's actually doing, but once I've got the levels loaded in and this tile size variable is properly explained and I show you the grid, all of this makes a lot more sense. So now that I've got this set up, that is my item box essentially created. But remember, I had this list here which contains all of the images, so I need to make sure that I remember to load all of those in. So let's go all the way to the top where I'm loading my images. So this is the section where I've got them. And just underneath my grenades, I'm going to say, add a comment to say pick up boxes. So I'm going to load in all the different images here. So let's just copy this code here and just rename the variables. So the first variable is health box. So we'll say health underscore box underscore image. And it's saved in the same folder within icons. And I just rename that to health underscore box. So now let's copy this down a couple of times because I also have an ammo box and a grenade box. So we'll change this to ammo and change this to grenade. And then within the names, I have to change the name of the image as well to ammo box and grenade box. So that's fine. These images are loaded, but remember I have to add them into, well, I referred it to as a list. It's actually not a list. I'm going to save these in a dictionary. So my dictionary is going to be item underscore boxes, and I'll create this dictionary. So within the dictionary, I'm going to have a key, which is going to be a variable, a string in this case, and that's going to refer to one of these images. So we'll say health is going to be my health health underscore box image. I'm not sure why that didn't come up. So that's the first one. Then the next one is going to be ammo. So indent that, and it's going to be ammo underscore box image. I know why it didn't come up, because I missed some letters here. Health underscore box. Okay, so I've got that one, and then the last one is going to be grenade. So indent that, and then I say grenade underscore box image. So that dictionary now contains the images, and they relate to these strings. So that means that within, if remember this item box dictionary is referred here, if I go, this code is starting to get a bit long now. If I scroll down to my item box class, where I'm looking for my self.image, I'm accessing that dictionary, and I'm looking for this item type. So that means that when I create an instance, all I need to do is feed in a string here, which is either ammo, health, or grenade, and that's going to get the relevant or the correct image for me. So let's just run the code to check for syntax, and everything seems to be okay. Of course, I haven't actually created any instances of it, but I can add them in just now. So let's create a bunch of item boxes. I'll come down, as I explained before with these, because it's a sprite class, when I create instances of it, I'm going to have a whole bunch of these boxes. So I'm just going to put them all in a group to make it easier to handle them. So let's come down here and just create another group. And this is going to be called item underscore box underscore group. So this is another PyGame sprite group. So now I can create instances of it, add them all to this group, and it should start coming up. Now, when I actually do this with the level editor and the data that I load in, these are going to be generated automatically. But for now, I'm just going to have a temporary area here for creating create item boxes. So this is just for demonstration. I will delete this eventually once I get a bit further into the code. So let's create a few of these. We'll say item box equals an instance of the item box class. And remember, this took as the first argument the type. So the type can either be health, ammo, or grenade. So let's just make this first one health. And then it was X and Y coordinates. So I'm going to put it over at 100 and 300. Now let's create, before I create another one, I need to make sure I add this to my item box group. So item box underscore group dot add item underscore box. So I've created one of them. Now let's copy both of these lines down and let's create a second one, but I changed this to ammo. And I'll move this one across a little bit to, let's say, 400. And now let's copy this down one more time, change this to grenade, and let's put this one at 500. So now I should have all of these coming up, but of course I'm not calling the draw and update methods within the main game loop yet. So until I do that, these aren't going to come up. So let's add that in here. Let's just copy this one down and rename it to item underscore box group update and item underscore, change this here, item underscore box group dot draw. So now let's just run this to make sure it's actually worked. And there you go. There are these pickups that are coming up on the screen. I've put them a little bit too low though, so the player can't actually reach them. Not that I've added in the collision yet, but he won't be able to reach them because they're a little bit too far down. But you can see the images have been loaded in. These are ones that I've drawn up. So each image has been loaded into the memory right at the start. And then depending on what instance I've created, when I fed in that variable name for them of either health, ammo, or grenade, it's chosen the correct image from that dictionary. So this is all working pretty well. I just need to raise them up a little bit. So let's just say, instead of 300, let's just say like 260 maybe, because I don't think they were too big. So let's move them up, see where they sit. Oh yeah, that's almost perfect. So that's fine. I've now got these item boxes coming up. Of course, I can't pick them up yet. I need to add in a little bit of collision, but that's pretty straightforward. I've already done that quite a few times, so we can do that just now. So let's come up to these item boxes. And now, just like with all the other ones, I just need to add an update method. So let's say define update, doesn't take any arguments, so we just leave self in there. And now I just need to look for collision. So I'll add a comment to say, check if the player has picked up the box. So I don't want the enemies to be able to pick up these boxes, so I'm only going to be checking collision against the player. So I say if pygame.sprite. collide rect. So there are different types of collision. Now previously I'd used sprite collide. Remember that looked for collision between a sprite and an entire group. However, this time I'm kind of doing it the other way around. Because I'm doing this collision within my item box, and I only have one player, I don't need to look for entire group collision. So I'm just going to look for collision between the rectangles. And as I explained here, whenever I create an image, I create a rectangle from it. So although you can't see the rectangles, that is essentially what's doing all the controls in the background. So it's the rectangle that's moving around, and it's a rectangle that's giving you the collision. So when I'm saying collide rect, I'm looking for collision between the item box rectangle and whatever rectangle I'm going to feed in here. So I say self, so it's the item box rectangle, and the player rectangle. So it takes those two and it looks for an overlap between them. And in fact, to demonstrate that, I'll just leave this for now. I'll put pass in here so that it doesn't run anything. And I'll actually show what these rectangles look like. So let's come up to my player. This is the player class here. And in the draw method, at the moment, I'm drawing the player image onto the screen. What I can also do is draw a rectangle around him to show what that rectangle looks like. So we can say pygame.draw.rect. The argument here is screen. You don't actually need to copy this. This is just for demonstration. Screen, then a color, so red. And then I need the rectangle coordinates. So I just say self.rect. So if I run this code now, oh yeah, of course, I need to add a border. So I'll say 1, and that just creates a border around them. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about these rectangles. It's taking the overall height of my images for each of the players, and then it's just drawn a boundary box around them. So you can see whenever I move around, it's the rectangle that's actually moving, and then the player or image is being drawn inside it. So in the same way, all of these items also have a rectangle. I've not shown it because I haven't added that line of code, but that is what's happening. They also have the same boundary box. So when I look for rectangular collision, essentially I'm saying if the two rectangles overlap, so for example, now I have rectangular collision. Now I don't. And that's basically all that is happening within these rectangle collisions. So I'm going to hide that. I'll delete this code because it's not really necessary, but that's what's happening in the background. So now I can come back to this line here within my item box class, and where I'm looking for my collision, I'm saying I have collision, rectangular collision between the item box and the player. So if that's happened, then the player has picked up the box, but I need to know what type of box it was first of all. So let's say check what kind of box it was. And this is easy because I have an item type variable here. So I can just look for what that was. So I can say if self.item type equals, so if this was health, then I know that he's picked up one of the health boxes. So if that's the case, then I just want to increase the player's health. So let's say player.health is increased by 25. So it recovers a quarter of the player's health. So that's fine. Now, what if it was one of the other ones? So elif self.item underscore type was ammo. Oops, that's wrong. If it was ammo, well then just increase the player's ammo. Remember, these are all variables that I've already defined when I created my player instance or player class, so it's easy for me to now adjust them. So let's give him, actually that's quite a lot of bullets. Let's give him 15 bullets. And now the last one, elif self.item type. So if this item was grenades, I keep putting that. So if the item was grenade, then we just increase the number of grenades he has. So player.grenades is increased by 3. So let's give him 3 more grenades. But of course, I don't want this box to stay once the player's collected it. So at the very end of all of this, outside of this if elif check, I had a little comment to say delete the item box. And to delete them, remember, it's just self.kill, and that's going to delete that instance. So now let's run this again and see what happens. So if I come in contact with this, you see I'm picking them up. So they get deleted, and of course I'm not seeing this. The variables are increasing. So perhaps what we should do is show. So I'll add a print, and I like to use these print statements for troubleshooting. So I do recommend that if you have any errors or if you're running into any trouble, it's easy to just add a print statement along your code because it tells you what's going on in the background. So let's say print player health. So we'll print it as soon as I have collision with the health box, I'll print the player health before adjusting it, and then I'll print it again straight after adjusting it. So I should then have 100 and then 125. So as soon as I come in contact, you see 100 was just before I picked it up, and then 125 just after I picked it up. So that's good, but remember my player only has 100 health. That's what he starts with. So because I'm using it as a percentage, that's kind of his max health. So I can't really have 125 health because then he's going beyond what he's allowed to have. So I don't want to just automatically add this on and forget about it. I want to add a little check here. So we'll say if player health has exceeded player max health, and remember this is an argument, it's the variable that I defined when I created the class. I can scroll up here as a little reminder. So I have self.health here as 100, and then max health is just self.health. So this is where, or this is one of the instances where it's coming in useful. It will be used again when I create the health bar. So if the health now exceeds that health, that max health, well, I can't really do that. So let's just equate it back to the max health. So we just make it equal to player's max health. And that's it. So now I'll leave these prints in place. But now remember, at first it went from 100 to 125, but now I should end up with 100 and 100. So although I picked it up, the health did try to go beyond 100, but then it was too much, so it stopped. So what if I was to throw a grenade and then stand on it? I should take 50 damage, so now I should have 50 health, and when I pick this up, I'll go up to 75. That's exactly what's happened. So I know that my item boxes are working. I'll get rid of these prints because I don't need them anymore. But it would be nice not to rely on these. It would be better if I actually had a way of displaying how much health I've got, how much ammo, and how many grenades. So that's something that I can quite easily add in. Now, PyGame or Python, well, rather PyGame doesn't have a way of displaying text onto the screen directly. So that's why I've been using these prints instead. So it outputs it down here. But I could add a function that's going to let me add text onto the screen. So to show text on the screen, essentially I take the text and then just convert it to an image. And then once I have an image, well, displaying that on the screen is easy because I have this blit function. So to do that, I'm going to create a function that I can just call anytime I want to display text on the screen. So I'll come up to where I've got my functions right at the beginning. I'll delete some of these empty spaces. And above my drawBG function, I'll create a new one, which is going to be define draw_text. So this function is going to take quite a few arguments. The first one is the actual text that I want to display, then the font that I want to use for it, then a text color, so text_col, and then an X and a Y coordinate for where I want to display that text. So what I do with all this is I create an image from the text. So I say my image equals font, which is this font that is being fed in as the argument, dot render. So I render that font into an image. The text that I want to render is this text that's being fed in, and then at true, and then the color that I want to use for the image, for the text. Lastly, once that's been created, I now have an image, so I can just blit it onto the screen. So I say screen.blit the image at the X and Y coordinates. So that's pretty much it. And that's the draw text function set up. But you notice I added a new section here, which is my font. So I need to actually declare a font first of all. So just above here, add a little commented section that says define font. And my font is going to be pygame.font.sysfont. So this is going to access the installed fonts that I have. And the one I want to use is Futura. And then after that, you define the size of your font. So you could change it to whatever you like. You can even install your own fonts and play around with that. So let's just run this, make sure there's no syntax errors. Everything's fine there. So now that I have this function, I can just call it and it'll display text onto the screen for me. So what I'll do, I'll go down to my main game loop again, because this is where I want to actually draw anything onto the screen. And just underneath where I've got my draw background section, I'll add a little comment to say show ammo. So to show ammo, I'm going to draw text first of all. So I'll say draw_text, which is the function that I've just created. And then I want to put in the amount of ammo. So we'll just say, first of all, say ammo, and then I need to add into this the number of bullets the player has. So let's use Python's formatting function here. So we'll put F, and then in curly brackets, I put in player.ammo. So that's the text that I want to display. Then I want the font, and after that, it's the color. So I haven't defined this yet, but I'll say white. And then this is where I want to display it, 1035. So that's going to call this function, but of course I need to define this color first. So let's go all the way back up again. I've got my colors up here, so let's just add white. So white's just 255, 255, 255. Run this code, and I've got this little counter here, ammo 25. And you notice as I'm shooting, my bullets are going down. If I pick up this counter, my ammo goes back up again. So that's starting to work pretty well. Now the other one to add in is grenades. So let's just copy this line down. Actually, I'll copy it together with a I'll copy it together with a comment and add them both here. So this other one is show grenades. So we'll just change that to grenades and change this to player.grenades. And then I just need to move this down a little bit. So 10 is still okay, but then we'll put this to 60. Run that, and now I have 5 grenades. I'll start throwing a few. Drops down, I pick this up, and the number of grenades increases. So that's pretty good, already pretty handy, but I don't think it looks that nice, to be honest. So what I would rather do is, instead of using numbers here, I'll just show bullets. So I'll just draw a whole bunch of bullets and a whole bunch of grenades, and that will show me how many of them I have. So rather than this text here, I'll remove this F, and I'll remove the curly brackets. So I'll just leave ammo with a space in front of it, and exactly the same for grenades with a space in front of it. So if I run this again, I just have kind of like a empty space in front of them. So into that empty space, I'm going to draw little images of ammo and grenades. So I can just add a for loop here. So I'll say for x in range, and I want to know how many bullets I have. Well, I already know that because I have an ammo variable. So I iterate through all of these images, and then I just show them onto the screen. So I say screen.blit. The image is the bullet image, which I use whenever I create one of these bullets. But because this isn't an instance, there's not going to be any worries about collision or anything like that. It's just a picture that's being drawn on a screen. And then in terms of the x and y coordinates, well, for the x coordinate, I'll move it over from the text a little bit. So I'll say 90 as a baseline. But then, because I'm going to be iterating, I don't want all of them to be drawn in the exact same place. So I need this to move with every iteration. So I'll say x multiplied by 10. So as this x increases, each bullet gets drawn a little bit further to the right-hand side. So that's my x coordinate. And then for the y coordinate, let's say 40. Let's run that. And now you see, instead of a number, I just have a whole bunch of bullets. So I can do the exact same thing for grenades. Let's just copy this for loop down here and get the indentation correct. So now the range is going to be player.grenades. Grenades. And now the image is also going to be changing to grenade image. The x coordinate, because the word grenades is longer, the x coordinate has to change. So it moves over to the right a little bit, and the grenade images are a little bit bigger as well. So the increment between them is going to be 15 pixels. And lastly, they were sitting a little bit further down. So let's run that now. And there you go. I've got my ammo and grenades. As I shoot, those little bullets start to disappear. And then as I pick up more ammo and grenades, that replenishes and these images increase. So that covers the ammo and grenades, but I'm not displaying my health anywhere. So I could just say health and then show a number, but that doesn't look that great. What I'd rather do instead is create a little health bar. And a health bar is very simple to set up. It's basically just a couple of rectangles overlaid on top of each other. So let's go ahead and do that now. As with pretty much everything else, I'm going to create it as a class. So I'll come up here underneath my item boxes, and I'll create another class for my health bar. So where am I? No, that's the player. There's my item boxes. So just underneath, I'll create the health bar. I don't need this to be a sprite class, so I'm not going to bother doing that. I'll just say class health bar, and I'm going to leave that empty. So I don't need to use the methods that come from the sprite group or the sprite class. So I start off with my constructor init, and the arguments that this takes are going to be self, x and y coordinates, and then a health, which is the current health, as well as the max health. So I need both of these to be able to figure out how much damage has been taken, and that's what determines the ratio. So let's just turn these into variables for this class. So self.x, self.y, self.health, equals health, and it's quite annoying. And then self.maxHealth equals max health. Okay, so that creates an instance of it, and now I just need to actually update it. So for the update method, all I want to do is draw rectangles onto the screen. So let's create, in fact, it doesn't need to be an update. I just need to have a draw method. So we'll say define draw self, and then the other argument it takes is health. So although it starts off with this health as being defined when it's initialized, the player's health is going to change. So every time it changes, I want to update and redraw this new health bar with the decreased or increased health. So let's say update with new health. So self.health is now updated. So originally it was defined here when I first created the instance, but now it's been updated with the new health that the player's got. And this health bar is just going to be a rectangle, like I said. So let's just say in here, PyGame.draw.rect, and I want to put this onto the screen. And then the color that I'm going to use for this health bar is going to be, so we'll say red, because that's the full health bar. So we'll put red, then I position it at self.x, self.y. So that's the x and y coordinates of the health bar. And then I need to give it a width and a height. So I'm just going to pick these as 150 pixels across and 20 pixels high. So that's going to be giving me my health bar. Now, of course, I need to create an instance of this health bar and then call the draw method into the game loop so that it actually comes up on the screen. So let's create the instance first. I'll come down to where I create the player, and I'll just create the health bar just underneath him. So essentially, the health bar is part of the player, or it's one of the key attributes for him. So health box, health bar. Have I renamed this incorrectly? Health bar equals an instance of health bar. Yeah, I have. I've named it correctly. So then the x and y coordinates are going to be 10 and 10, and then I need to give it the health, which in both cases is just going to be player health, because I've just created the player health instance, or sorry, the player instance. So his health is full. Player.health. Okay, so that creates an instance of my health bar. I don't need to bother adding it to a group because I only have one health bar. If I made a game where the enemies all had their own health bar, maybe displayed on top of their heads, then I would have had to create this as a group, or maybe even create health bar as part of the enemy class, or the soldier class. But in this case, I just want to have one health bar, so that means that I can draw it onto the screen somewhere within here. So let's scroll up. So this is where I've got my ammo and grenades. So I suppose just before I do that, I'll just say show player health, and underneath we'll say health bar, which is that instance, dot draw, which is the method I created. And remember, this needs to take one argument, which is the player's health. So although this might not be changing, anytime the player takes damage or picks up a health potion or a health box, this is going to change and it's going to update the health bar. So let's run this code, and there we go. So I've got my little health bar up here, but at the moment it's the full width of the player's health and it's all red. So traditionally what this indicates is that the player has no health left because it's all red, so the player should kind of be dead at this point. So what I actually want to do is have this red bar always in place, but I'm going to draw a green one over it. So the green one is going to cover it and it's going to look like he's got full health, but as he takes damage, the green bar is going to get smaller and reveal the red bar underneath. So let's add that in just now. If I go back up to my health bar class, I just need to add another rectangle here. So after I draw the red one, remember the order that you draw things in is important. So they get drawn on top of each other. So because I want the red bar underneath, I need to draw the next health bar, which is my green one, on top of it. So rect, screen, I don't think I've defined green yet, so I'll need to do that. And then the coordinates are exactly the same. So it's self.x, self.y. But now the width is not going to be a full 150. I need some kind of ratio. I need to know how much damage you've taken. So I'll say 150 multiplied by ratio, which I'll calculate in a second, and then the height is still 20. So now this ratio is essentially my health divided by the maximum health. So if my max health starts it off at 100, which it did, and now I only have 50 health left, well, that means that my ratio is 0.5 or 50%. It's 50 divided by 100. So that can be calculated in here quite easily. I'll say calculate health ratio, and you say ratio equals self.health divided by self.max health. So remember, these are, although these come from the player originally, these are variables that I'm feeding in here. So I've got health here and I've got max health here. So the health bar has its own version of these, although they're exactly the same as the player's one. So now that I have the ratio, I'll be able to draw this rectangle over the red one, but I need to remember to declare this, define this color, otherwise I will get an error. So let's come up to the top, and this is where I've got my colors defined. So let's just add a green one to it. So green is RGB, so 0, 255, and 0 for blue. Run that again, and now I have a full green health bar. So let's take some damage first of all. I'll stand on this grenade, and notice I've now gone down to 50% health. I pick up this health pickup, and now I've gone back up to 75. So this is all working pretty well. There's a couple of things that I want to check. So first of all, I want to make sure that I can't go beyond full health. So this green bar should never go over to the right-hand side. So if I pick up this health bar, health item, sorry, this health box, it didn't heal me anymore. And that's because of that check that I added earlier, that if it goes beyond my max health, it just resets it to max health. The other thing I want is to add a little border around this because it looks kind of funny when it's like that. So I'll define another color, and this is going to be black. So black is just 0, 0, 0. And then I go all the way back down to this health bar class, which is here. I just add on one more rectangle. So this rectangle is going to go underneath the others. So I say, in fact, I'm just going to copy this to save retyping it. Color changes to black, and self.x, self.y. But I want this rectangle to be a little bit bigger than the other two, because if I just draw these over it, then you're not going to see the black one anymore. I want this to act as a kind of border. So I'll make it self.x minus 2, self.y minus 2, meaning that it's going to be over to the left and to the left and up by 2 pixels relative to the rest of them. So actually, if I run this now, you'll see what I mean. So you can see there's kind of like a backdrop there. But now, because it's still the same height and width, it doesn't reach all the way across. So I need to add an extra 2 to equalize it, and then an extra 2 to go past it. So I need to add 4 onto here and onto here. Run this again, and now I have this little border around my health bar. So that's all working a lot better now. And I'll just make sure that I can still take damage. There you go, and one more time, and that's it. Run out health, and the player's dead. So that's pretty much it. It's all starting to come together now. So that's it for this video. If you found this useful, then please do leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with these, then feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.